All right. What's up, everyone? Today, I am really hoping that we have no technical difficulties, since there's a new camera, which should be showing me a lot more clearly, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Um, I think that might be the final piece of all the upgrades I'm doing between the sound upgrades and the camera upgrades and everything. I do have to, actually make the maybe make the screens a little bit nicer, like the overlays and stuff. But other than that, I think I have everything mostly figured out. I don't know if the color is going to be too awesome. I had to kind of adjust the lighting compared to when I used a webcam for this, but hopefully it's a lot better now. So, I've had a really interesting, well, I've had a really interesting weekend. Um, it's been interesting because outside of things going on in my life, I've been talking with a few different viewers, and something that keeps coming up is personality types. And so, since it's on my mind, and since I've been talking to some of you about it, I figure that tonight I'll probably dive into Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or MBTI, personality test, and uh, yeah. Now, full disclosure, a lot of people think this is all bullshit. Um, the Big Five Ocean model personality test is considered to be more, let's say, academically and scientifically rigorous. Uh, the interesting thing about that is, you have um, a lot of different. There's five different types, so big five, or five different parameters or dimensions. Let's say traits. So there's like trait openness, which is what the O in ocean stands for. Conscientiousness, which is the C. E is for extroversion. A is for agreeableness, and N is for neuroticism. Those break down further into subcategories, and it's it's very interesting and fascinating, and I think there's a lot of value in that. Um, but with that said, I think that for a core group of people, or at least a certain group of people, MBTI makes a bit more sense. God, I just can't freaking get comfortable right now. Um, in the sense that it, if you take like the Big Five model, and you go, okay, this person's like high in agreeableness and they're low in neuroticism and they're medium in conscientiousness, that doesn't really, that gives you insight into like specific aspects of their personality, but it doesn't really like it tells you about those things individually. I don't know that it gives you like a big picture, at least in the way that I usually look for. I can know, okay, if I am, I don't know, let's say in the 40th percentile range of conscientiousness, that means there's going to be about 60% more people who are like more diligent, more disciplined, all that kind of stuff when it comes to work and things like that. Now, conscientiousness does break down into, I believe, orderliness, and can't remember what the other one is off the top of my head. Um, and some of those can predict things like your politics and kind of where you fall on the political spectrum. It will let you know if you're a super tidy person or not, and things like that. But I don't know outside of maybe like openness that it does a good job of really kind of helping you to get some answers in like, well, what do I do with this information, right? Just have to take some socks off right now because they are way too, my feet are way too warm. It's hot in here. It's fucking lights and everything. So I think MBTI does a better job of that. I think that when you figure out your type, although I hesitate to say this next part because I don't want anyone to make an immediate comparison and discredit it. Although there can be some things that, you know how like when you have a zodiac or a horoscope, and you know it says, oh well, you're good natured. It's like, who the fuck considers themselves bad natured? Like, really? And some of the things are so vague that it's like this is kind of telling people what they want to hear. Now, if you're into horoscopes, I'm not trying to shit on you. There are some people I really respect that are into it. So, you know, I'm not judging anyone. And specifically, let me just take it a step further. And I'll tell you what I actually believe about all this stuff. Even though I don't see a whole lot of value in it personally, and I see some conflicting things and things that don't make a whole lot of sense. Two things. Number one, if I literally think there's a creator to the universe, and that some ethereal being, like magic, just made this shit all happen, then I can't really discount fully any other phenomenon in the universe. So even though I don't, you know, see a whole lot of value in it, doesn't mean I'm shitting on anyone's thoughts on horoscopes and things like that. You know, just from a logical standpoint, that's where I stand on that one. Number two, even though I don't get a whole lot of, you know, whatever out of horoscopes, I still know I'm an Aries, and I'm proud of it. So, the point I was making, though, is that, you know, sometimes I'm looking on my other screen here, and I'm about to switch over to it to kind of start diving into this. You know, one of the traits of one of these types is sincere. You know, like, does that really... I kind of get what they're saying, but you can kind of go like, really? Does that like really... When a lot of people want to think of themselves as sincere, you know, maybe not the hotshot Wall Street broker or something like that. But I could see that some people might go and say something like that. Now, I do think, though, that the majority of kind of the traits associated with each type generally do paint a picture, especially when kind of taken together, of what that person's like. But then furthermore, the interesting thing is when you kind of see that there are like these are your traits and how they kind of add up and what they mean, I have found that there were a few main things that I really got out of this in the first place. Number one, being an INFP, which is not super common, and we're kind of hard to find out in the world because we're really introverted. My entire life, I felt like an alien until I found this test, and I found that there was a type, which led me to go, so there are other people like me. And then I found a forum with other people like me, and it was like, oh my god, I'm not an alien, I'm not alone, there's nothing like wrong with me. You know, for INFPs and specifically males, it's a hard journey especially through your teenage years, with the kinds of things that we emphasize in life, the kinds of things that we value and care about. It can be really difficult coming up in the teenage years and even in the 20s. It wasn't until my 30s that the interesting thing, MBTI talks about functions, and I will get into that a little bit later. But kind of as you develop as a person and a human, as you age, you develop these and become more, not just well-rounded, but integrate your like secondary and tertiary and auxiliary functions. This is key to kind of becoming a bit more of a whole person, and I think it's difficult, especially again for like a male INFP or an INFJ, for example, that would fit the bill too, to not have some of like those like further down functions developed. And especially as a teenager, you have like hormones raging and emotions are raging and all that kind of stuff, and it's just like it's hard to it's almost extremely difficult to be mentally healthy regardless of any trauma. It's difficult because in those years you're just constantly wrestling with values internally, because again, from my own type and experience, you're trying to figure out how you feel about anything. And really, in your preteen years, but especially your teenage years, that's when you kind of have developed your prefrontal cortex to start kind of even thinking about those things in the first place. Like at 8 years old, I might have known if I liked ice cream or not, but I'm not deeply thinking about politics or anything like that at that point. So it was super useful in number one, telling me that I was not an alien because I felt like it. Number two, it helped me to understand myself in relation to other people, specifically my wife at the time, and it made me see how we were super different and what her values were, and everything in like a whole new light. And it actually made me realize that we were never going to work, and I should have realized that for literally the fact that everything else in the relationship was fucking awful and we had no business being together. But it kind of it was like, oh well, it's not a matter of like trying it wasn't something where there was enough similarities and shared values and shared beliefs and all that kind of stuff that you compromise a little bit. It was just so clearly on opposite ends of the spectrum that I was like, there's never going to be any common ground to be found here. Like, we're wasting our time. I'm certainly not against trying and compromising, and I'm not saying that no one should work together in a relationship, or and all relationships have struggles. There's fights, there's communication problems sometimes, especially, and I'll get into that too, because a lot of what I was talking about with people lately, viewers, is the communication between different types and how it can be so strained or just difficult, kind of depending on where you fall and where they fall with certain letters and things like that. Number three, it also let me know where I was going wrong with my life and what I had to change to do. It is the case. Now, this is not just the case with MBTI, this is actually the case with the Big Five model as well. In Big Five, it would be high in trait openness. In MBTI, it would likely be I don't want to say it's really related to any letter, but certain types are different than others as far as creativity goes, right? If you're a creative individual and you're not doing creative things, even just as like a hobby or something, if it's not your actual vocation or job or career, whatever, uh, your mental health is going to suffer, right? So, right off the bat, if you are a gamer who at one point played an instrument and enjoyed it but let it go, you like to paint, you like to um, do any kind of craft, you like screwing around and doing graphic design on your computer, you like even something like just building shit in Minecraft, right? Actually, as far as gaming goes, in the game that I play, it's possible, and not in a Minecraft sense, because there's like a central server run by a company. It's possible for the players to actually design maps and send them in and have them become part of the game. And even that was a creative outlet for me at various times as I've been playing the game over the years. So that's just one aspect of why this matters. You know, as again, it's like, oh, I'm a creative type, and here's a few other traits about me that, um, even if I kind of knew that I was creative, it it changed it from maybe this is a nice idea someday, or like to no, I have to start taking this seriously for my own well-being. You know, it's not enough for me to although I can get away with not honoring, like, let's say, the drum kit behind me and playing that every day or even every week lately because I've been so busy. Having it there for when I am stressed, I'm feeling down, or something like that, and just playing and letting out some physical energy, because drums is actually a physical activity, and also some creative expression, just letting out some emotion through playing it, is really great for mental health, more for me, more than, you know, I don't want to say more than medication or anything like that, because I'm not trying to hate on medication, but let's say, you know, exercise is very good for mental health as well. And I would say this is similar. If you are a creative person, you should really have an outlet like that, in the same way that exercise can be really good for someone to keep your mental health going, right? That's what this channel is about, is doing both big, deep things to, you know, specifically healing trauma and grief and all that kind of stuff, to kind of change your beliefs and stories underneath, and start removing fears and negative thoughts and all that kind of stuff as a natural result of changing those stories. But then also there's a practical side to everything we're trying to do here. Gratitude practices, journaling, whatever else. And this is a practical thing that if you are a creative person, you really need to have something that's an outlet to keep your mental health up. And exercise, I just mentioned, that's another thing. Like, I was just lifting weights earlier today. It had been a while since I had done it, and I really didn't have time today. And I was like, no, I didn't get to do the full workout that I wanted to do. I had to skip the deadlifts at the end because I was just so crunched for time, but at least I did squats and overhead presses. So it's not just creativity, though. It's knowing your type. There's just a wealth of knowledge and information on the internet about, well, these are the kinds of things, these are the kinds of personality traits that you'll have, and here's how you kind of function going through the world as far as your functions. But like, this is how you view the world primarily, and then secondarily, and then, like, this is how your brain operates, and by kind of knowing how your brain operates and sees the world, you can then see kind of why you do what you do, what would be good for you to do. Like if you're struggling with, am I in the right career or not? Why isn't this working out? Like, everyone told me to go be a doctor, but I hate being a doctor. I don't want to do this. What do I really want to do? Well, I don't even fucking know. Well, this might be a good place to at least start, because if you see your type and you go on a website, there's a million of them that kind of lay out, this is um, these are your traits. These are the things that are going to make you feel the best if you're doing them regularly. You know, for me, my type, it never fucking fails. Like, I will go and we are the natural therapists or coaches. We're also into creative endeavors, so artists, musicians, things like that. Like, that's. I'm not saying that my fate is necessarily predetermined, but I've never felt better than what I'm doing right now on this stream. And also, when even my other time besides doing this is spent creatively, either playing drums or designing stuff in the games I play, like the maps. I've done a ton of graphic design and website design for decades, literal decades. Even as a teenager, I was drawn to designing websites, just like video game fan pages or things like this. First website I did for money, I was like 13, 14 years old. It was just my mom's boss, and I got $100 out of it, which is like, woo, video game money. How's it going? Doing really well. I hope you're enjoying the stream. And by the way, chat, if you guys want to like ask me questions and stuff while I'm rambling, that's I didn't have the motivation to study night, but I studied, pushed through it for massage therapy. Very cool. What is it about massage therapy that makes you want to go into that? I'm really curious. Because I do go get massages kind of regularly, but I can't imagine, like, I don't know, I can't imagine, like, actually massaging people. To help people to create a life I enjoy seems like a job I'm really going to enjoy. That's really cool. I'm interested in this, and the reason I ask you is because we're talking about personality types right now. And do you happen to know anything about personality types or MBTI or anything like that? I was told at a massaging event that I was better at communicating. I was a massage therapist in the field. Very cool. What, when you say communicating, does that mean like what you're saying to clients, or does that mean, okay, talking? How does that play into what you do? Making sure, oh, okay. So just, there's something about you, your natural kind of talents, that you just kind of fall into it, and is that like what I'm getting here? Everything to help the client feel welcome. That's really cool. I like that. I think that's the interesting thing about what I'm going to talk about with personality types is, it's... I think I'm starting to get there, but I find it easier to listen to people than to talk to people. Hmm. How's that work? Let's dive into this if you're comfortable talking to me. Like, how is it that you find it easy to talk to people, but you have the anxiety, and where do you think the anxiety comes from if you find it easy to talk to people? I got nothing better to do. I'm here. I'm willing to listen. This is true. No, no, you're fine. You're fine. I mean, have you ever watched my channel before or anything like that? I think I've seen your name before. Never. Okay. Huh. God, maybe someone had like a similar one or something like that. Anyway, so what I do is I am a life coach, mainly trying to work with gamers that is focused a lot on trauma and grief recovery and things like that. To be clear, since you've never seen me before, and I just want to say this to everyone else, I am not a medical professional. Please do not take anything I'm saying as medical advice. I am not a therapist. I don't play one on the internet. Do not change your prescriptions or anything like that if you're on any, so on and so forth. But let's see. Yeah. So I can relate. um, what kind of mental health like, what are you drawn to as far as that goes when you're talking about it? Like where do you focus, I guess? Because like I said, I kind of am interested in trauma and grief recovery heavily, and then once people are past that about like going after your dreams. So you've been suffering for years? That was a question. In like, I just want to make sure because you said you have helped a lot of people. I think you said you've been suffering for years with this. Um, so, oh, it's become a huge part of your life talking about mental health. I guess because of your own struggles, probably with like social anxiety. Gotcha. Cool. Same. Um, my own story is that I pretty much as long as I can remember had something going on. Parents divorced, dad alcoholic, not so awesome when I was around 4 or 5, and just throughout the many years leading up to devastating betrayal in my mid 30s, I basically, despite that betrayal coming along in my 20s and 30s, I've spent pretty much the past 15 years doing all sorts of study work, therapists, coaches, you name it, trying to figure everything out, trying to change everything. Then eventually, big trauma happened in mid 30s, kind of put me at rock bottom, and I had to rebuild my life. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I'm talking about on here, because, we're gamers, right? And especially from talking to people in MMOs, as soon as I start talking about trauma or depression or whatever else, everyone's ears perks up. Because I think a lot of us are struggling with this and we escape to games, right? And like I think the gaming community really needs, more and better information about mental health, and I think in general this country needs a better approach to resolving and dealing with trauma and grief. And it's not like the information isn't really out there, but I feel like we're just kind of taking the wrong approach in a lot of ways, right? Really? That's good to know. I'm gonna now what that's good to know, because I'm obviously doing this. I want to make sure that I'm not getting suspended. What was it that they suspended you about or for? Okay. Why? So being suicidal. Wait, you were threatening others, or you were threatening to kill yourself? Like, based on what you were saying. I mean, they took it. Not saying you did it. I'm just saying however they took it. I'm not sure if you were saying that you... I was saying I was tired of life. So... Yeah, that's kind of fucked up that they did that. Um, yeah, absolutely. So are you struggling? I'm with you. I'm with you. You're right. And we should be doing a lot more. True. Are you so facts? Facts, I should say. Went to the chat up here. Um, and that's why it's important that we talk about this, right? Right. And not only that, if you look at, and I'm not trying to get political and talk about it. We're not going down this path, but if you look at gun deaths, right? Suicides make up a huge proportion of gun deaths. It's not just all homicides, and right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, I'm curious if you don't mind diving, because you're talking a lot about this, but then you were saying you were still kind of struggling, and I can empathize with that because I think, I was just talking about how my Myers-Briggs type, and maybe yours too, we're kind of like natural therapists, right? At least my type is. I don't know what your type is. Right, and what I was just about to say is, I remember the first person I talked out of suicide, I was a teenager, and there's been a lot more. Yes, this is a big problem. Right, right, and unfortunately, I think a lot of people who, yeah, no, I am absolutely with you, and I think there are so many people out there who are constantly saying, well, you got to find the right therapist, and I've been through 8 therapists and I still haven't found the right one, right? And yeah, I disagree with that. I don't think it's impossible. I don't. Now, I have an incredible amount of study and working with others and mentoring and all that kind of stuff as far as being a coach goes, but I don't think I need I don't think I need a degree to talk about mental health. I don't. And in fact, I think a lot of therapists are falling short exactly why you said is because just because they learn the brain and what causes depression and I'm not hating on every therapist out there. There's some good ones. I know some good ones. Some good ones are my clients, actually, because I've worked primarily with coaches and therapists prior to doing this stream thing as a web designer for them. They were my niche. Find it the easiest to help people. Right, and that's exactly why I'm doing this, is because it's so easy for me to empathize, and I don't think having, let's say, ivory tower knowledge, um, I remember going into a therapist session, and this guy just had no frame of reference for what I was going through and was just trying to be very clinical about it, and it was useless. It was a waste of my time, right? And I'll bring up someone else that I know has, and I'm going to keep them anonymous because they do watch this, but they'll know who they are. They mentioned that their therapist has never had a sip of alcohol, and this person previously dealt with issues with alcoholism, and their family has a lot of history of it. And the person said it's like trying to explain YouTube to an Amish person when talking about alcohol to this person. Let's see. Let me catch up here. Exactly. And my cousin a few months ago just said deal with it and figure it out. Then a few weeks ago she was. Yeah. Yeah. So, do you feel comfortable if I ask you a few questions, just myself? Because I know you're talking about it. I know you said you talk about it in general. I don't know how cool you are about explaining your own experience, but I'm totally down to do this right now with you if you are. So I'm curious because obviously you're passionate about this, so am I, and that's awesome. I'm really glad you're here tonight. Um, what have you done as far as like try to deal with your own social anxiety, or do you kind of have an idea of where that comes from or anything like that? I'm just kind of curious about your history with it a little bit, what you've done to, if anything, to try to resolve it. And I want you to know, just because you see me on the stream right now and I'm talking to you right now, does not mean that I can't empathize, because I am a massive introvert, and only up until I became socially competent in my 20s, but only up into the past few years when I really went through a massive transformation, am I able to even do this and talk with you right now. And I had horrible social anxiety to the point that I remember in college I actually passed out at a party just from the social anxiety. It was so overwhelming. Okay, so therapy's not really helping. Have you done any? So you're talking about it, and it's one of those things where I'm guessing because you can empathize so strongly with other people from your own experiences that you're helpful to them just in a listener sense, in a talking sense is kind of what I'm gathering here. Yeah, that none of that sounds like it'd be useful. I'm sorry. As far as your experience and what that second therapist said, or the one before it, I guess. When you said before that, like I don't think negative isn't a fucking solution. Okay. And it's just been these three therapists? Yeah. Let me allow this. I thought you told her to fuck off. It's great. Okay. So at this point, what you're telling me is you're still struggling? Sorry to hear that. Um, I would hope that you don't do that. Sincerely hope that you don't do that. And I think it's because that, from what you're telling me, it would be a real shame to lose someone who has the gifts that you have, and that you have pushed and worked so hard before, and I really believe, and it's why I'm doing what I'm doing, that it's possible to move past what you're dealing with right now. And I say that as someone who dealt with massive social anxiety, who's been suicidal. I was locked up in a mental hospital for 2 weeks once. I have done so many drugs and nearly overdosed before. So I can tell you that I've been in some bad spots, and I can tell you now on the other side that it is possible to heal and move past all this shit. I don't disagree with you. Uh, yeah, no, I actually, unlike a therapist, I can actually sit here and say, yeah, I don't disagree with you. And now I would say that I feel that's more like an age or a physical ailment thing where like it's just never going to get better. But to be fair, I know that mental, emotional, and all that kind of pain can be possibly even greater than physical pain sometimes, right? The good news is that this can actually be healed though. So it's not like terminal for most people, in my opinion. Whenever I say something like that, I'm speaking generally. I know there's someone who is just so far gone after 60 years, and like it realistically, mentally, they're probably just never going to be there again, right? There are some people who are just insane. Yeah, yeah. So look, I'm not trying to shame you. I'm not trying to shame you. That's not it. Because I've been there. I've been there. Hey, we're cool. But can can I ask just a few questions that to maybe get a better understanding of where this came from. So, is do you have any idea of where your social anxiety came from? If you're willing to share with us, with me. Mm-hmm. Mm. Uh-oh. Come on, camera. Hmm. This is a problem. Let's see if I can get that back. I'm still here. Hang on. There we go. Okay. Come on, camera. There we go. Sorry, this is the first night with a new camera setup. I gotta mess with the camera and figure out maybe there's like a shut off timer or something that I'm gonna have to mess with later because I just hit about the 45-minute mark, so maybe that's what kicked in. Maybe there's a 45-minute auto shut off. All right, so let's get back to you. Um, so other than that, was your life good? Did you have any your childhood divorce, any kind of abuse, anything like that? And again, if you don't feel comfortable, you can just say, I just want to stop here at any time. I'm not trying to force anything here. This is a public thing, but I'm just curious. What does that look like, the verbal abuse? What do you mean? Mm-hmm. How old are you now? 22. Okay, so you have very controlling parents. When was the first time, if you can remember, when this social anxiety started coming up? I keep looking down here rather than the camera because this is where my chat is. So I'm paying attention to you, I promise. So you have gone through trauma. I mean, just because it's not like, you know, anything that, you know, I usually say trigger warning, like pick your trigger warning, right? Like there's obviously some bad shit out there. I'm not trying to bring up things that make people, you know, feel bad or relive bad memories, but you know, it's I can empathize a little bit. I don't want to say that, certainly not my mom, but I don't want to say my dad did exactly what you did, or went through, but it was traumatic in the sense that it's like constant disapproval, constant guilt trips, constant like, why aren't you doing it this way? You know, why this is what you should do. And even until I was about 28 was I still dealing with that, you know, kind of being talked down to, being controlled. It just was a struggle, like all the time, with him in trying to communicate. So many phone calls and stuff would, I wouldn't want to. I knew if I said something like it'd probably be disappointing, so I would hide stuff, and then he would pick up that I was trying to like hide stuff and be kind of vague. So he is a really amazing debater, an incredibly smart person, and he would know, and you just, you know, ask the right questions to try to find where I was not telling the truth, and finally I'd have to come out and tell the truth, and then it would be, oh, why you do this, just talking down, and I would just kind of go revert to when I was a child, really, like when I was 5, 6 years old, and just kind of um, not stand up for myself and just get very quiet and go inside and feel bad about myself and hate him so much for it, you know. Um, so this isn't about me. I'm just trying to say, you know, I can understand how actually there's kind of two types of trauma in my opinion. I while I have seen some shit, it's not like I was ever like molested or anything like that. Although I've known people who are. Um, I'm gonna get to that. I'm just gonna finish my thing here. But you know, some people just have that big event, right? There are others where it's kind of like a death by a thousand cuts, right? Growing up the whole way, if you have 22 years of parents who are controlling you, and not only that, but they're telling you, I know you said you had a good childhood, and I'm not discounting that. I'm sure, you know, you probably got Christmas presents and stuff like that, right? But you know, you say I had a good childhood, but verbal abuse all my life. It's like that's a long time to just over and over and over and over going in. You're being traumatized. You're wrong. You're bad. You're this. You're that. You know, over and over and over. You're having all these experiences, and I didn't fight you. At least I don't know if you've thought about this yet. It's possible you did, but you said you're not sure where the anxiety came from. I'm curious if you think it's possible that being told over and over and over and over, you're wrong, you're bad, you're this, you're that, that then when you get around other people, that deep down it's like, I'm wrong, I'm bad, I'm this, I'm that, and you are afraid to um, communicate and be vulnerable and open up and show who you are because you're wrestling and just you've been taught the lesson through this trauma and grief that you're bad. So even if maybe you're someone who's maybe a little more extroverted and finds it easy to talk to people, as you said you do, you might be struggling here between maybe your more natural ability to communicate. Maybe you, even if you're not introverted, you can still be, or extroverted. Let's say you are introverted, you can still be socially okay. Um, So if it's okay, so it's not the talking. Is it just being around other people? Huh? But like, I guess what I'm trying to get here at with you, and I think you maybe agree. Um, it's myself why I have it right. I think what I'm trying to connect here is, while it's certainly the case that mental illnesses, no, you're fine, you don't have to apologize. Well, it's certainly the case that mental illnesses can exist because of whatever reason, right? Let's say for that person, just the wiring is a little bit off, and it always was, and due no fault of their own, no fault of their upbringing or anything like that. I think it's often the case that when these, like, depression, anxiety, which are kind of two sides of the same coin, when those things come out, they are the symptoms coming out that can be traced back to something deeper, which it is in incongruence internally with you. Hmm? Isn't that interesting? This happened around your teenage years, you said? I mean, that's kind of when we become kind of self-aware, and also things like, cliques and groups. Younger than that is when the social... Elementary school is when the social anxiety started? Or that's when you thought that's when you had a tough mindset? Yeah, like, I'm confused. Okay, so in elementary school, prior to, let's say, your brain fully developing, um, it's like, how could anyone be depressed? Just, be tough and all that kind of stuff. Then your brain kind of more fully develops in your early and mid teenage years, right? Around as you're kind of entering high school, late middle school. Um, yeah, your timeline is not that much different than mine, actually, in that I didn't really have too many issues, but I noticed the first few issues in that I was depressed and anxious and all that come out in 7th grade. In 8th grade, grades just barely started to drop, and I was like, straight A student like my entire life up until this point. Like, I was just doing fine. 9th grade, I went from A's to like B's, and then 10th grade was like, I that is when I was locked up, and I was suicidal. I was, it it got bad, and really it was through those years that the depression, the anxiety, everything just blew up for me. And then as I got out of my teens and college, and kind of got to a place where I wasn't constantly around people and all that kind of stuff, I managed to live with it a little bit more, kind of around your age now, in early 20s. But it wasn't until my late 20s that I began to understand how to solve this stuff. Mm-hmm. Did you have an answer for why you wanted to die? Yeah? I don't know what the answer is. Hmm. But let me just rewind here, because I know you said talking isn't a problem, and even opening up isn't a problem. but is it possible that even if you're opening up, because I actually didn't have a problem opening up either. Even in my teenage years, when I was connecting with people, when I was talking people out of suicide, it was like the reason I was capable of doing that was I was able to open up about my struggles and the things that were going on with me. It was more one-on-one than getting on Twitch like I am right now. And you can see in some of the past streams I've really dived into my own history and like all the shit I've been through. But God, this camera's killing me right now. We're gonna have to work on this. All right, let's try to get this going again. Sorry everyone for the technical difficulties. This is what happens on day one after you do a major camera upgrade. So I'm just curious if it's possible that the trauma and abuse you went through, the verbal abuse, could be related. What the hell is going on now? Alright, here's what we're gonna do. Boom, we're going back to the old one. Good thing I left this thing plugged in, huh? Alright. Done. Let's see if I can... Fix the lighting. It's a little better. Alright, so this is going to be a little fuzzier, but we just got to deal with it until I get this camera situation figured out. Anyway, as I was asking, is it possible... Music I listen to calms my soul, lets me know everything's gonna be okay. Yeah, I'm a big music fan, actually. Wish I could go hiking more, drive my parents' car, plus no time, which sucks. Never traveled far on my own or traveled on my own ever. You're still young. I'm 37. You're 22. You got a lot of time. In fact, what I'm trying to do is travel more myself starting next year, because I've been wanting to do that, and I think you would you say you're an extrovert or an introvert? And by that I don't mean are you socially competent or not. I mean, do you get energized being around other people, like large groups, or do you recharge by maybe only one-on-one conversation, or going just hiking and being out in nature and all that kind of stuff, kind of by yourself? Okay, so you get energized by yourself. I'm not saying that, there's kind of that common misconception that, yeah, right. So you sound more introverted. Um, but, it doesn't mean that you're not capable or, kind of socially stunted or anything like that, right? Let's put on the glasses that don't have the reflection with this webcam. Thought I was going to get away with it with the new camera, to not use the old ones. Alright, so what I'm gathering here is you were verbally abused for a good portion of your life and are even still struggling with that. And you're introverted and you have social anxiety. Now, just because you're introverted doesn't... Maybe because I feel so connected to myself that my body has a reaction of feeling weird of being in public. So I think, and this, full disclosure, not a therapist, I think anxiety is like a sign or symptom coming up based on... Oh, it blocked it out. I gotta figure out... I'm sure because I set up a bot that blocked it. You could just type the name out without the ad or anything, and just your username, and we'll be able to figure it out. You don't have to put the whole Instagram.com in Twitch DMs. How do I even... You're the first person Twitch DMing me, I think. Let's see here. Boom. Okay, I got you. Oh. You're a handsome dude. Let's put this over here. Yeah, you really like hiking. I see all the nature photos when I scroll down a little bit. Where are you located, if I may ask? See lots of pines, so I'm like, oh, Canada. $1,580 following. Nice. See the massage photo, I felt weird social anxiety. The massage photo, like the... one of the top 2 ones? Are you talking about? Or am I scrolling, not scrolling down far enough? Oh, you feel social anxiety in all these photos is what you're saying. Ah, I got you. Okay, and that's when you got that feedback that everything was like that you were killing it and you communicated well and you were awesome at being a massage therapist and all that kind of stuff. Okay, cool. So you're struggling. Do I see you massaging with another person? I'm looking around. I don't see that. Am I missing this? Promise I'm scrolling all up and down. Okay. No worries. So you're awesome at what you do. Do your parents approve of what you do? Okay, that's what's up with the photos of the old looking dude. Like the black and white photos. I got you. So again, you are talented. You're getting all this feedback. Do your parents support what you do? Like with the therapy. Okay. Your parents got you a running coach. They just talk about work and bills. Okay. Uh-huh. Which are... Oh. Okay, you got a running coach. Ah, okay. Okay. Do they have, like, really, like, white-collar jobs? You know, like, executive type jobs, things like that, or I'm curious what they see as a good job for you to do. Works in healthcare. Hmm. What jobs do they think you should do? Jobs different than their own? Something more like white collar? I'm just really trying to understand the disconnect here, because if they're talking about wanting me to work at a grocery store just this mechanic, why don't you become the welder, the common jobs you hear. Mechanic. Huh. How do those jobs differ for them than because a massage therapist is you're physically working with people, right? So we're talking about like physical jobs like welder. I could see, I know welders can get paid well if they go through like a lot of trades and things like that. Why is what you do not? I'm trying to figure out why they disapprove of what you do. Yeah, no, I understand why you want to do it. I'm totally down. I think you should do, dude. You are clearly excited about what you're doing. I am not against you doing that at all, right? Like you should totally do the massage therapy thing because you're like, I help people. Everyone tells me I'm good at this. Like, those are good signs that you're on the right track. Yeah, yeah. So you're on the right track now. I think you know, hmm. Well, I'm glad that you're clear on that. Yeah, I've been there before, working some jobs before, like stocking shelves and stuff like that. Uh huh. So I think you're on the right track with your job because there doesn't seem to be anything wrong there. Granted, your parents disagree with that, but it sounds like for a long, long time they've been kind of telling you what you should do, you're doing it wrong. They kind of disagree with who you are at a fundamental level almost, it sounds like, right? Like it's almost like your parents are telling you like you're wrong as a person. Is that kind of what I'm getting? If it's been verbal abuse for that long and just don't do this, do that, and just trying to control you and make you do things right. Okay. So, um, are you open to kind of discussing ways to maybe change that? And I'm just going to go by my own experience here and how I changed that with my dad. And family in general, but he was the main one. Hmm. Yeah, I wasn't. I don't think talk therapy and just talking about it's really useful. I'm actually talking about, like, Like, and I'm not suggesting you talk to them either about it, or me for that matter. I mean, if you're like, no, this is going to be what it's going to be, that's totally cool. I can tell you my experience hasn't been that. It took me a few extra years to get there from where you are right now, but I was able to turn that around. It didn't involve me talking to my parents. It just involved me doing some work on myself. And I don't have that relationship with my father any longer, by the way. We actually get along now. He still tries to tell me what to do sometimes, but we're good now. I'm leaving it open to you. I can do something like just get into my own experience and what I did, or I can, you can see if it would be applicable to you if you want to go that route. I don't have to like necessarily start talking with you and start working with you on it right now. But if not, that's cool. We can kind of move to a different subject, something that you want to talk about if you like. You still with me? Alright, well, not sure if our friend is still with us, or just typing or something like that right now, but now might be a good time to get into my own experience with this, with my parents and them kind of, or specifically my dad, being different but similar to what we've kind of just heard in the chat, and what I did to resolve that. Now again, it got to a point where it really, well, let's start at the beginning. I mentioned earlier on the stream that he was an alcoholic when I was a child, and even up through my 20s he was. It wasn't the fact that he got sober that changed things, because he wasn't sober at the time, but things changed, although it didn't happen that long after, and that was because he had to, if he wanted a liver transplant, because he needed one. That's how bad it was. Very, very critical, and interestingly, when we talk about trauma, so often the trauma is a cycle that is repeated, right? And so interestingly enough, my grandfather was very strict, and my dad was the baby of the family, and kind of, you think of the oldest in the family who kind of has the responsibilities to kind of step up and be the good son, right? And all that, whereas the baby kind of is fuck up sometimes, not all the time, but it is the case that some of these stereotypes exist for reasons. So my grandfather was a very strict patriarch, kind of like 5 kids, ran their own business. It was an auto repair store. He was also the fire chief. That kind of guy in the community, worked hard, believed in hard work, was a, Depression era child, so they were, there was nothing fancy about my grandparents at all, even though they were worth over $1 million at the time that my grandmother died. But they wouldn't even go out to eat and get steak or anything like that. Like it was the most they ever went out to eat was going and getting subs at Jersey Mike's, and that was before they became a national chain, and it cost fucking $9 for a 6-inch sub. Um, my dad, I think, I think my grandfather really saw that my dad wasted his potential and opportunity and was very, you know, strict on him, guilted him, wanted him to do things his way and what he thought was best and all this kind of stuff. And my dad went his own way and then wound up failing pretty hard, actually. And to be fair, it's not all his fault. He started a sub shop in at the Jersey Shore, like where the TV show is, Seaside Heights. My dad had a sub shop there, and he worked his ass off. And I was only a baby at the time, so I don't even remember this. Um, and one day, his partner cleaned out the bank account and disappeared, and left us with nothing. And that the pressures of trying to take care of a family, losing the business. They had a house that was way too big that my grandparents helped my dad buy for my mom and me. Not being able to make those payments, I mean, he scrambled to find jobs. It was not good, and him drinking didn't help. Um, that same kind of thing passed down to where, similar to how I guess he was treated, I got treated the same way. But this is how it should be, or a lot of guilt tripping, a lot of I'm wrong, and all that kind of stuff, and just years of these kind of these struggles with not being accepted, not being um, loved for who you are, right? For not feeling worthy. You're just getting the message over and over and over that you're not good enough, that you're disappointing, that you are, you know, just it sucks. It sucks when, especially, I think for males with dad, and then of course like females with mom. Although I'm not saying that that's the case, completely, but especially when it kind of comes to like what you should do, and with your life and how you're acting and stuff. Your father is the role model because he is also a man. You're trying to figure out what to do, and it is a fucking the amount of divorces in this country and kids like barely seeing their fathers and everything it's a massive fucking problem. I'm not saying that I'm against divorce. I'm not saying that there's not good reasons for it. I'm not. My mom should have left my dad at the time. She was right for it, and we were better off for it because it wasn't working out and was never going to work out. And I've been divorced twice now. I'm not arguing against that. I'm just saying that it is a real problem right now, with how many kids are growing up without a positive male or masculine influence. And there's just too much of a feminine influence when the main parent, and sometimes the only parent, is female. Not shitting on single moms. My mom busted her ass when she first left my dad to make sure that we would have a good life. She has been a tireless supporter of me. I have nothing bad to say about her or single moms. That's not the point. So don't take it that way. So, moving on, then I get into my adult years. I went to college and dropped out because I was a drug addict, pretty much. I'm working just dead-end jobs, basically. But then even as I started getting good jobs and like well-paying jobs, and I mean, I worked in the oil industry for a little while as a subcontractor, and one year I pulled in about $100,000. Now, a lot of that was expense reimbursements. So, and you have to, you know, like it would have been less. I'd say, realistically, somewhere in the $70,000 to $80,000 range, though, still for all the time and the pay and everything. Um, and we just you make money on expenses. Um, your mileage rate. I did a ton of driving, so even though that pays for gas and it's also supposed to pay for like car repairs and stuff, if I'm not having car repairs, I'm just doing like oil uh, oil changes and shit like that, and gas, I'm making a little bit of money. Uh, the Where I was staying, I was working so long that I rented an apartment, but I got to bill at the hotel rate. So the hotel rate nightly, if I stayed at like the nearest Best Western, for all the days I worked, that rate covered my apartment rent, plus my cable, plus my electric, plus my water, and gave me a little bit of money extra in my pocket on top of that. So the point is, I was doing okay in my like mid 20s. I'm 25, 26 years old, pulling in 70 to 80K, and this is 2008, 2009. So way different than 2021 economy. Like it honestly, it was like I was making $100,000 in today's economy with inflation and all that kind of stuff. So not bad for a kid who only a few years before was stocking shelves and dropped out of college. And a lot of that was because of the work I had put in doing graphic design and website design on the side and all this kind of stuff, that it gave me the skills that actually transferred to something they needed at the time. And luckily, I had a friend in the industry who was able to get me in, and that was really fortuitous. But at the same time, I'd put all that time in for the past few years trying and trying and trying. The point of this isn't to brag about how awesome I am and how much money I made 12 years ago. The point is that even then, I was still getting guilt tripped and all of this other kind of shit. And it really came to a head, and I was working with two people at the time, two coaches that I massively, massively respect. One of them is Meredith Hook. I've recommended her book, Let Forgiveness Set You Free, on this channel before, and I'm going to pull it up just because. Let me close that guy's Instagram. I don't know how I know he was going to post it in the chat, but still, I don't know if he wants that public or not. Alright, check it out. Let Forgiveness Set You Free. Some of you have already bought this book and have started working through it and have reported back to me changes that you have seen with relationships of other people in your life that you have trauma or grief around or surrounding or from or whatever else. I think this is a great workbook to work on your own. This isn't the book that I personally use when working with clients, nor will it be, because my own mentor is coming out with their own book, and I'm almost certain that it's going to be the book that I wind up using when working with clients. And but the one I use right now with clients is just better in a coaching relationship rather than doing it yourself. But if you need to do this yourself, this book is literally only $10.71. So it's, if you have Prime like I do, then it's Prime shipping. Like it's a great book. When I was working with Meredith, this was coming up. Now, Meredith is actually a meditation coach and / mindfulness coach. She runs a website called zensmarts.com. But the interesting thing is, when you hear meditation coach, you go, oh, so she's going to tell you how to breathe in and breathe out. It is far more deeper than that. She's talking about Eastern philosophy and mindfulness and meditation as a way to deal with negative thoughts, anxieties, things like that. And even she's writing a book, Let Forgiveness Set You Free. And it goes hand in hand with a lot of the other stuff that we were working on together, as far as meditation and how it is practically applicable to your life. It actually is. And she's a master at, kind of taking the lessons you learn and like taking you through a system where you do different kinds of meditations and you learn along the way and have your truthfully, I'd say it's like a paradigm shift as far as how you view things in reality and how you operate in the world. Even just over the course of a few weeks, you begin to start seeing things differently as you commit to doing the work and the exercises, but you're learning in the process, and you're learning why it all matters. Meredith said something really impactful to me at the time that you know it just it was half the puzzle for me when it came to my parents. It was, she's like, no one wakes up in the morning and like tries to be an asshole. Like no one like wakes up, throws their legs over the side of the bed, and it's like, how can I cause as much pain to other people or make my son feel awful today, right? And somehow I was like, okay, that makes sense. I don't think anyone really does, but like, why then? And then it made me think, okay, well, I know from all my trauma that it causes me to do all these things, right? It like is a driver in my life that has caused me anxiety, it causes me negative thoughts, it causes me to act a certain way, it causes all these things. What would my dad have to go through to be like that fucked up, where he's an alcoholic, he, divorced, not an awesome, I don't want to say not an awesome dad, because like it's not like he didn't try, it's not like he didn't take me on vacations or take me fishing or whatever when I had time with him on the weekends or every other weekend. I'm trying to paint him as like a monster completely. Just in those moments when it was talking about, what I should or shouldn't be doing, it was really just constantly getting like battered down, just beaten down. Like what I wanted to do wasn't good enough. It wasn't what he wanted me to do. Just so much guilt trips. I remember when anyone tried to use any kind of guilt tactic on me, I would just shut down. And I don't just mean him. I mean, like, that affected me so badly for so long that I just completely, like, it was partially shutting down and going inside of myself, but so much rage, just absolute rage. When I recognized that my dad must have gone through some shit himself to get to that point, it made me change my anger to pity. It just made me go, like, it's not him. He's not evil. He's not bad. It like just is what it is, right? And so I began to see him in a new light, where I was no longer looking at this like evil monster, like looking down at me and you should do this, you should do that. It wasn't that anymore. It was, this is a human who is hurt and in pain like I am, and like so many of us are. And again, I felt so sad. I felt such pity, and that allowed me to take the next step. Because I was still struggling though. Like I felt that, but like I was still being triggered. Like when I would talk to him, it still would go bad, because we had this way of operating between us, where, you know, again, I hadn't really gotten to the point where I felt I didn't have the tools. I was still kind of trapped in those same stories and lessons where when you're a kid and this is happening, you're like 6, 7, 8 years old. You can't like talk back to your dad, right? You can. It probably won't go well for you. And you learn the lesson that you are beneath this person, that you're below them, that you don't know as much as they do because you're a kid, right? And I've actually spoken with someone else who watches, and they had the same experience, but it was with another family member. It's the same kind of thing where just as a kid you think like, well, this person's older, they must know, right? And especially a parent, though. So what happens is then, as children, we're doing the best we can with like super limited tools. You know, if we live in a modern world, as a kid you are using like Stone Age tools still, like just the most basic rudimentary things to survive. You cannot process and think like even a teenager, much less an adult can. um, your brain is just not fully developed. You are working with super limited resources. You're trying to also kind of grow and figure out a bunch of other things too. Um, so you know, and you're trying to like learn and become a human, right? Like you're just trying to learn like basic math and shit when you're pretty young, like alphabet and all that. Like that's the level that you're at that age, and like those things are kind of a struggle, like writing your letters out and all this kind of stuff, right? From ages of like 2 or 3 up until like 8, and you know, like multiplication, like every adult watching this right now is like 2 times 3, yeah, that's obviously 6. But like when you're like a kid, it's like, okay, 2 times 3. You know, you get what I'm saying here. You basically, unless you revisit your unless you kind of like start installing new tools and working with them and all that kind of stuff as you go, which is really atypical when it comes to trauma. You just kind of get trapped in a certain way of operating. It's like you learn the lessons as a kid, and those tools are what you used, and then you just carry that forward through your teen years and even your adult years, so that, you know, you might be a fully functioning adult, you might be in your mid-20s, you might be able to go out and fucking party and get drunk and like do all this other kind of shit, but then somehow when your parent talks down to you, like you get reduced back to being a 6-year-old basically, right? How do we change that? The way we change that is exactly what I've been preaching on this channel since the beginning, is going through trauma and grief recovery work. The reason is, you, again, as a child, when you went through that stuff, and I'm talking about you using limited tools to survive, you are just basically forming some basic beliefs and learning some lessons and all that kind of stuff that is like way down in there. It's like way down. It's not the shit at like the front of your forehead, like I gotta remember to pick up milk at the store or something like that. No, it's like these are like deeply embedded beliefs and modes of being and operating. And the process is not terribly difficult in that you just have to really get a lot of like pretty much everything that's happened out of your brain and onto paper or something in front of you, computer, it doesn't matter, so that you can start objectively and hopefully a little bit detachedly, is that a word? Word of the day if so, look at this, right? You want to look at it without like it just kind of being in your head somewhere back there. You have to like look and see what happened as if you were looking at someone else, because we can. Again, I've talked to a number of people who watch this stream about some of the things that they went through, and I'm like, we can both agree that if this happened to someone else, you would never have the beliefs that you do about this with them. Like, let's say, again, trigger warning, you were molested as a child, right? And you often feel like, well, I was bad, I was wrong, something is wrong with me. Of course, there's many other feelings, there's many other things that are attached to that. But we would never look at another child and think they were bad or they were wrong or anything like that. That would be absurd to blame the child for that. But we blame ourselves because like we're just doing our best to survive at the time to try to figure it out. And then it like gets embedded, and then we don't get it out. And I don't just mean talk therapy, which is where we kind of ended with our friend there, where it's like talking about it won't help. Yeah, just kind of talking about it doesn't help. You actually need a process to get this shit out and to look at it and go, okay. And it seems like the worst thing in the world before you do it. And again, I was recently working with someone, and it was about this, and like they did not want to do this part of the work, let me tell you, because it seems so scary, it seems so big when you really start thinking about the worst things that have happened, and you don't want to relive it because you've been shoving it fucking down like for so long. Like, nope, I don't want to think about that, I don't want to feel that. The problem is it's still it's like this toxic poison that just like seeps out. Like as much as you try to cram it down, there's all these little cracks that you can't ever fully seal it away, and this poison and toxic shit seeps out from it into the rest of you and how you operate, right? But we think we can just kind of slam this down. That's not the answer. We got to actually just get it out, right? We need to look at it objectively and go, yeah, this is, I was a kid. What the fuck? Why do I feel bad about this? Right? Then the process is you have to forgive the person. It's a lot easier said than done. And the reason that I coach people and work with them is because this stuff is hard to do on your own. I'm not saying that you guys can't do it. That's why I recommended the book. And you can see progress. But first off, it's hard to stay accountable to yourself. It's hard to actually want to go through it and do it. And also it really helps to have someone else who knows this stuff, that as you come up against different thoughts, or like, no, I don't want to do that, or I don't believe that, or I don't agree with that, why should I do that, helping them to see a different perspective about it all can be really helpful. And that's why I work with people on this. When I went through this process with my dad, my beliefs and my stories about him and about me and about us and everything all changed. And he no longer was this person that I was being abused by. It was just, you're a person, and I've let this all go, and I'm not gonna be triggered. I'm not going to shrink. I'm not going to hide. I'm not going to lie about what I'm doing anymore. I'm not going to do any of that shit. I'm gonna like, we're done with that. And the next call, he tried doing what he normally did, and without any charge or negative emotion or revenge or hate in my heart, or even sadness, just from a place of truth. because I knew he wasn't gonna like the answer, because that's how it's been. You know, I know he disagreed with everything I was doing. I just said, honestly, yeah, this is what it is. And he tried to come in, and I forget exactly how I handled it, but I was just like, okay, well, I disagree. This is what I'm doing, and, you know, I'd appreciate your support. You know, here's a few of the reasons why I think it's right for me. I understand that you don't like it, but, you know, we're different people. You know, it was probably some form of some of this, and, you know, there was like a little bit of pushback, but very, very quickly he realized that we were in a new paradigm in our relationship. It was no longer me shrinking under this person kind of coming down on me. It was just me directly talking to someone else straight on and saying, no, that's not for me. At no point did I ever tell him I did this work. At no point did I ever go to him and say, I forgive you, or anything like that. It was just, I did all that work on my own. And the relationship that I had with him changed from then on. I'm not saying that he never gets like that, but very quickly, just because he kind of will naturally go into that mode sometimes. And the thing is, I actually know it's because he cares, right? That's, you know, he's not saying all this stuff to just try to put me down. It's because he thinks that his way of doing things would be better for me. I can know that. I can go, okay, that's really cool, you know, and I'll even say to him, like, you know, look, I know you care, and that's why you're saying this. I disagree with this, and this is why, you know. It's like, it's not that I'm not listening to you and I don't hear your concerns, and I appreciate that you're concerned about me. That's actually pretty cool. Since then, I've literally, after doing that work, I have not struggled. We had one really difficult conversation since then, and he was right to do it, and that was when I was going through just absolute rock bottom, and I was moving out here to Phoenix from the Poconos of Pennsylvania. We were making a super long road trip with like just this like open trailer with all our shit on it, kind of strapped down on the back of my SUV. Just totally broke. Relationship was, for all intents and purposes, dead. I was a wreck, and it was obvious. Like, I was done. I was done with like life. Like, not that I was gonna kill myself at that point exactly, but like, I was done. And he had to have a kind of heart to heart, like, what are you doing? Like, you need to make some hard choices here. Like, you need to make a decision. Like, look, I think the world of the person I was in a relationship with at the time. I think the world of her. But, like, you gotta make a decision about if you want to continue this, and you gotta get, like, your life back on track here. Because, like, you are in a bad spot, and I can see that. But it wasn't coming down on me like this. It was just more empathizing, like, dude, like, from father to son, like, you need to fix things, right? It is possible, I think, to solve and heal these things, because, like I was saying earlier, I had massive social anxiety before. I don't have anxiety now. I still, as an introvert, prefer not to talk. And there are some people who are introverted. Going back to MBTI, for example, there are some types who are more introverted, but actually are more sociable. In fact, I know someone. The reason I know this is I know someone, and I was talking to them about them and their type, and they are introverted, but actually quite sociable. And it comes because of other aspects of their personality type that even if they are introverted, they're some of the most sociable introverts that there are. But I don't feel that anxiety anymore. It's it's not just because I got older and I'm now in my late 30s and I'm like, fuck it. Like, I don't care as much anymore. You know, because there's like, as you get older, you just start giving less fucks. It's not the reason why I don't have anxiety. It's because I've done all this work and cleared up a lot of those beliefs and stories about different things about myself or others or whatever else that was causing me. Your body keeps score. We talked about Dr. Peter Levine's work and his book Waking the Tiger, and how trauma is also stored in the body, and how that's, again, depression and anxiety are kind of two sides of the same coin, but that anxiety can be you holding in trauma in your body often. And actually, if I was going to give a very practical tip to our massage therapist friend, I would try checking out Waking the Tiger and Somatic Experiencing. I think that might resonate with you a little bit, especially being into massage therapy and working with the body and using that as a method to help people, and your interest in mental health and everything, and the connection between the mind and body. I think that would be really interesting to you. But I do think when I hear about depression and anxiety, I don't think it's just because, like, oh well, I have a mental illness. It's called depression, and so I just need to go talk to a therapist a lot and be on pills the rest of my life. Like, no, those things are your brain and body's way of telling you that something's not right. Either you're doing the wrong thing in life, or there's something from your past that is fucking your shit up. Right? So it's possible that you're doing the wrong thing in life, but I don't think, in regards to the job, you know, this person was like, this is what I want to do. I want to help people. I'm really good at it. Everyone tells me I'm really good at it, that I'm really good at communicating with them. Like, I just have a natural talent for this, and I like what I'm doing and all that kind of stuff. Like, that isn't where the depression and anxiety is coming from. Like, now, I would guess it's more that the family disapproves there. And again, the family's been disapproving for most of the person's life. And I think, aside from the somatic experiencing, it might be worth investigating that and trying to let go and go through a process of letting go and forgiving the parents, so that that relationship is altered going forward, and this person can step into themselves more fully and really go for what they want and feel good about that on all levels, as opposed to kind of having like the bad feeling that the parents are against it and all that kind of stuff. And hopefully that might be at least one step. I'm not going to say that's going to cure anxiety completely. There might be other things in this person's life we don't know, but just from what they were describing, that seems to be like the big issue, that they got into that like very quick, right? So, whew. We didn't cover MBTI really at all, minus those first like 20 minutes. So I think we're going to see how tomorrow goes, but I'd prefer talking to you guys in chat way more than like monologuing about my shit. So if at any point anything I'm talking about, you guys want to chime in and ask questions about it, you just want to talk to me about your stuff, like Viking Esports Boxing Club, that's cool with me. And I need to figure out how to make this fucking webcam stay on for more than 45 minutes, or I don't know what the hell was happening with it. That's a problem though. Can't have that happening where it's shutting off in the middle of the stream. Alright. So, we're coming up on 2 hours. I think it's as good of a place to stop as any, more or less. If you liked what you saw, please follow. Subscribe on YouTube if you want. Join the Discord. All the links are down below. I will be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, which is every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Then Tuesdays and Thursdays, it's at 9:30 Eastern at night. And I think that's about it. Alright. Thank you all for watching. Take care. Have a good night.